careers, leadership pathways. I am honored to co-host tonight with the chair and vice chair of our Women in Cyber chapter. A little bit of a advertisement for Women in Cyber. Gianna and Caitlin are just awesome leaders within that group. It's not just a Virginia Tech organization. It's open to Nova students. It's open to faculty. It's open to graduate students. And it's not just a women's group. In fact, it's so important to have men that are committed to the success of Women in Cyber and women who are committed to the success of diversity writ large in cyber. As we've talked about before, it's so important to get other languages, other cultures, other points of view into cyber, because as a nation, we really need to protect that entire information universe and not just that part that is our bubble. So Gianna, Caitlin, before we kick off, anything that you guys want to mention about chapter doings?
Yeah, I'd love to speak a little bit about our mission, just for new people. So here at WISIS, we're trying to get more women in cybersecurity, but that also doesn't look just like women. We are looking for people of color and other people who haven't had a background in cybersecurity or haven't had access to the knowledge that would provide that background. WISIS offers training and scholarship programs to get that training, as well as the conference in Colorado where we can do some networking, and they offer scholarships to that as well. Me and Caitlin will be there. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. I believe you can find us on Gobbler Connect. And if you're a Nova student, I can put my email in the chat and feel free to reach out to me.
Caitlin, one of the things that is so important, I think, is networking. And it's never too soon to start networking in cyber. I suspect that the Women in Cyber chapter is an awesome networking resource.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with Gia just said. The whole point of this is just to bring more people into cybersecurity, into the community, and trying to help as many students as we can. So feel free to sign up for anyone who's interested, and I'll also put my email in the chat if anyone wants to reach out.
Outstanding. And as always, we intend for these to be interactive. So please engage with us on chat, ask questions, make observations, provide an example, push back if you've got a different opinion on things. As far as how we would like to run things tonight, we'd like to spend about a half hour with back and forth between Colonel Frost and myself and our co-hosts. But then at the 30-minute point, please be ready to engage, to ask questions, to talk about some of your concerns. If you've got any observations about where cyber is going in the future, absolutely welcome. We also want to make sure that we communicate the value of all of our programs, right? We've got our 2-year associate's degree in cyber in the business college at Nova, the opportunity to go from Nova into our 4-year programs at Virginia Tech, and the students that start out in Blacksburg know the value of that program and graduate with outstanding career opportunities coming out of Nova, coming out of Virginia Tech. We also have the Corps Cadets online, and for many of those, their jobs may be a little bit more constrained, but a little more exciting when you think about what you can work all around the world and some really cool things. But we also have our master's program here, both master's in IT, where we've got a strong cybersecurity component, and MBA students, where we talk about the business of cyber. And cyber is increasingly a tremendous business opportunity as well as a business risk. So with that, let me introduce our guest tonight. We're very honored to have Colonel Candice Frost with us. And Candice is a soldier. She went to West Point 4 years and then was able to go into the intelligence field, and is a career intelligence officer, which is really among the branches within all of the services, you really want your best and brightest in intel. You want that person who's looking out into the gray void of what might happen beyond that next ridge, or what's going to potentially attack us a month from now, or where are we 10 years from now with competitors now that may be adversaries as we go forward. Well, it's the intelligence branch that looks out ahead and not only predicts, but also conducts operations to clarify that grayness of what the future holds for us. And she has an amazing track record of doing that. I'll turn it over to her to talk a little more about her career, but she's a combat veteran. She's been to Afghanistan twice, leading troops in combat, supporting infantry groups, including the unit with the first women Rangers. She's an accomplished author. She's an accomplished speaker, and just an amazing leader all around. So let me just stop there and Candice, ask you, if you would, to tell us what brought you to cyber, what brought you to this point in your career?
Well, thanks so much. And it truly is an honor to be able to speak with you all tonight. You all should give yourselves a pat on the back for attending, because I do know as you get closer and closer to the period with respect to finals, your time is incredibly precious. So thank you for taking a couple moments out to really explore the cybersecurity field. And bravo to you for attending as well, because you're helping yourself out in the future. As we kind of look in the bubble of what's next and, careers that are truly growing and gaining speed, you may hear things right now with respect to some of the larger tech firms that have kind of scaled back a bit. But the thing they are not scaling back on is cybersecurity. So I am glad and I'm really encouraged that you're attending here tonight. A little bit about myself, why I was interested in cybersecurity is it's truly a domain, the information space right now. When we look in totality of all the different levels of warfare, what's kind of the most furthest reaching, what's the most complex area that really is intertwined into all aspects of national security. And right now it's cybersecurity. So it's never a dull moment in this space. I have come to this as an intelligence officer. I'm still an intelligence officer right now in the United States Army. I have the fortune to lead the Joint Intelligence Operations Center at the United States Cyber Command out of Fort Meade, Maryland, where I have an organization of about 75% Defense Intelligence Agency employee, and the rest are uniformed service members from all of the different branches. And we work together to try and look at the cyberspace and say, hey, where are those areas that we should pay most attention to? Where are the largest threats that are headed our way? We were just kind of prepping for this discussion and kind of talking about my background as well. I did not start in this domain. As a matter of fact, I jokingly tell people, my computer science grade wasn't really great back in the day. I'm a political science major that came into this with just an insatiable curiosity. So if you're the kind of person, whether you're looking at a business degree or some other type of engineering degree, even if you are insatiably curious and you're a lifelong learner, there is absolutely a space for you in cybersecurity. And that's what's so fun about this area, is that what you are studying today is going to be totally different. When we look at this space, we did not expect ransomware to be the huge issue that it is right now, even 2 to 3 years ago. And so that's what's so fascinating about this space, is that it's constantly changing. So as I walked into this job that I hold right now, I really saw the impact of how this is changing the face of warfare. We can dive into that in this discussion, and how I think it will change the shape of how we deal with other nation states, because in cyberspace, attribution is incredibly complex. And that's just, again, another fun aspect of why this job is good for people who have that insatiable curiosity.
Fantastic. Colonel Frost, if you could tell us a little more about the JIOC, right? It's not the Joint Intelligence Center. It's the Joint Intelligence Operations Center. Yet Cybercom's got a J3 that has an operations center, the global operations center that then connects to the different functional and service components. Can you talk a little bit about the O in JIAC and what that
Sure.
construct means to supporting the cyber comm commander?
Yeah, so our job, because the United States Cyber Command commander, General Nakasone, he is a 4-star general in our force, and some of you may have heard some of the land component commands, whether that's Central Command or European Command, which is very busy right now assisting Ukraine and the things that they've done after Russia's invasion. Our command, Cyber Command, is dual-hatted with the National Security Agency, the NSA, and United States Cyber Command. So that 4-star general, General Nakasone, we on the Cyber Command side spend a lot of our time working on the operations side. So we feed both operations to protect and defend the Department of Defense Information Network, better known as DODIN. Our job is to work to defensively protect that. We're also in support of defending the nation and its critical infrastructure. And then lastly, a third of what we do is on the offensive side of the house, the ethical hackers, making sure that people external are not trying to harm us. And so we're defensively protecting it, but also helping other nations protect their own networks and through offensive or hunt forward operations. Our job in the intelligence arena is to say, hey, here, when we look at criticality, it's all about risk and reward. Those of you who are getting business degrees definitely understand the criticality of that word. We do the same thing in the intelligence community. We have to weigh where the effort and the work that we do, where we should focus that at. And so that's the fun part of the component that we do in the intelligence support to operations themselves in the JIAC.
Are you also the report card of whether operations succeed or not? I imagine sensors are important to you, in human and machine sensors, in determining, did we really achieve the outcome or the effect that we set out to achieve in our cyber defensive operation or our cyber defend forward operation?
Yeah, I think that's consistently a question. And in any operation, you've got to kind of reflect back on, hey, did this have the intended outcome that we had expected? Did it underachieve or did it overachieve what we had expected? That is a part of the feedback that we give through assessments.
So I have been told by some of the regional combatant commanders and some former regional combatant commanders that one of the reasons why they may not trust yet an offensive cyber operation is they just don't yet have the confidence that is it going to do what they said it was going to do at the time they said that we're going to do it. Increasingly, modeling and simulation, does that play a role here? Having a sandbox that can very accurately show what that cyber environment that you want to create an effect in is going to look like, so that you can not only satisfy yourself that you got the engineering right, but you can satisfy a operational commander that, yep, this is what's going to happen if you pull the trigger on that.
I think the hardest part, I'm going to back up a little bit on that. And that is really understanding in this space, unlike, let's say, if you're doing an operation and you have something in a land domain, you are looking at a target and you've got a weapon system, which through simulations and modeling, hey, this is the trajectory of the bullet and this is where it's going to land. The starting position and you can kind of use mathematics and figure out a way through physics to understand where that munition will land. The hardest part in cybersecurity is sometimes we just don't know. And through persistent engagement, maintaining access is incredibly difficult, because you may think, hey, I have an entry point into this other network, or we really feel like we have a strong toehold in this area. And all of a sudden, Patch Tuesday comes around and a good administrator patches their networks, and that access that you had counted on is not there anymore. So you constantly have to develop. And I think that's both encouraging. I mean, it's like a constant game of cat and mouse a little bit, but that's what makes it really difficult. And that's why it takes so many people who are attuned to understanding networks and kind of what their roles are in this through what our doctrinal terms are of persistent engagement, to constantly stay engaged both in the defensive and the offensive side of the house, because this space itself is growing in totality. It was, the mentioning of the Internet of Things and 5G as it's going forward, and going all the way forward to quantum, and the challenges that will occur. I think that makes it incredibly interesting, but also complex, and very, very difficult.
So I saw Colonel Rebecca Gray pop up for a second there, and I'm going to leverage that for a second here. She's the vice commander of the 111th Attack Wing for the Pennsylvania Air National Guard, but she's also a senior executive at Boingo, one of the nation's wireless companies, does all the wireless in airports. The attack wing has to worry about collateral damage, right, Rebecca? If you're going to ever plan a mission, you got to not just think about where you want the bombs to fall, but what's around where the bombs are going to fall, or where you send the smart munition. Candice, is collateral damage also something that is charged to the JIAC, where you're asked to, hey, take that course of action we're considering and tell us what might go wrong?
So I absolutely think that's a part of kind of what we do. I'm going to move it a little bit, move some of the conversation to things that we've seen happen, kind of examples, less so of what we're doing in United States Cyber Command, but more so an example of kind of what happened in 2014 with NotPetya. And when Russia targeted and tried to localize a cyber attack towards Ukraine, and really the wild expansion, once that network attack, that pointed attack got into the networks themselves, it caused billions of dollars of damage, specifically with companies like Merck, that kind of matriculated its way into Europe as well. So I think that the localization of what we try to do is hard, but once it's out in the space, and I think that's the difference when you look at kind of, if you're flying an airplane and you drop a munition, there may be collateral damage, but once it ends, it ends. Sometimes cybersecurity, you have to also, sometimes people compare it to almost like a nuclear strike. And if you drop a nuclear bomb, what are the lasting effects for a very long time? I don't always subscribe to that same comparison, but I can say sometimes the after effects are things that are unintended. And although Russia was targeting their attack towards Ukraine, the unintended effects and impacts on Europe really caused many nations to harden themselves. And it was a quick lesson on critical infrastructure. We've taken that as an example and really looked at how can we further strengthen our networks. And we've seen that through many different aspects of kind of a whole of government approach that we've taken through the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Department of Homeland Security, and then ourselves and the Department of Defense, but even the Department of State now, they have grown their cyber capabilities. So it's really grown through unfortunate side effects of what had happened even almost a decade ago.
Yeah, NotPetya is a great example also of if you deploy with a weapon to the battlefield and you leave your rifle in a place where the adversary gets it, there are really bad consequences to not being careful with your weapons. Let's fast forward a minute to Log4j. So Log4j, oh my goodness, Iran. How could Iran have such effect and show really agile capabilities that really wreaked havoc with a couple of our federal agencies? When you have something like Log4j happen that is a pop-up and a surprise, what does that mean to your group at Cybercom? What do you guys do with that?
So I think a lot of what we do, and initially we are very focused on protecting the Department of Defense information networks and how we make sure that when something like Log4j occurs, the first thing is, making sure each of the services themselves are protected and all of our networks in totality. So we kind of go on this immediately what Director Easterly infamously says, shields up. And that campaign is a great way to really think of, hey, what's that first step you've got to take to make sure that you are safe and secure? And then understanding things like some of these, whether it's ransomware or Log4j as an example itself, trying to attribute, hey, is that a nation state or is that an actor that's just trying to profit? The ability for kind of ransomware gangs or criminal networks has really exploded. And so we're constantly on the kind of trying to work at deciphering and understanding where this is coming from and what is the pointed nature of this. That is incredibly tough, but that's kind of one of those things we step up to the plate and start doing right away.
I know in the Navy, our information warfare community values greatly our linguists. And we've got a rich cryptographic history that goes back to before World War II, where we really needed people that could not just speak Japanese, but decipher the characters. I would imagine that same need exists with all the services. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having a team that understands other cultures, that maybe speaks other languages as you're trying to defend networks?
Absolutely. And it's actually kind of it's not just localized into our Department of Defense work. We use a myriad of different tools out there. And I know a tremendous number of business networks do as well. People that understand different languages and understand different cultures, they're key to understanding cybersecurity, because in our scope of what we do, it's also information operations. And so to understand, hey, if we're putting a message out, how is that received in different cultures? Are we saying things the right way? Those are really important parts and pieces to what we do in overall, not just the Department of Defense, but also Department of State and all of those other agencies and areas that are messaging. We look at mis and disinformation and how that's coming to us and how it's used. For instance, when we look back at the 2016 elections and the fact that both heavily Russia influenced and Iran itself really went into trying to, how could they use that to their advantage with misinformation campaigns? We have to understand foreign languages to see where that's targeting and how we can try and prevent that. So it's really important to have people with skill sets. Also, it makes you a better cybersecurity professional. Those people who can speak multiple languages. And another fun part of, we have found people that understand and read music very well. They also make great cybersecurity professionals. It's kind of that ability to decipher things. That's a fun part of growing the field. I just keep telling musicians, come on over. We've got jobs. They pay very well.
So cyber universe really has gone well beyond ones and zeros, well beyond the hardware, the software, the wetware, over to the cognitive space as well. And we need to be just as vigilant there. And I know you all are increasingly looking at those areas. Are other nations trying to dominate what the narrative is in a way that is hurtful to the nation? Let me shift gears here and ask Gianna to perhaps weigh in. What are some of the things on your mind, Gianna, for Colonel Frost?
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Jen Easterly, Assistant Director, and I know that one of her more active initiatives right now is to get half the workforce to be women. Can you speak a little bit about how this growth of critical infrastructure and recognition of the importance of cybersecurity creates a space for women and people of color to have a place at the table?
Oh, absolutely. And another a phenomenal West Point grad. I give her all the props for the work that she has done. I myself am also a Director Easterly fangirl. So we all have people we look up to and we're like, want to be like them when we grow up. She is absolutely someone that I would say, if you have different social media accounts, follow her. A lot of the work that she's done, the things that she's written, she's an amazing speaker, and she has her finger on the pulse and understanding through her work as the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, better known as CISA, from the Department of Homeland Security. The work that she has done and really leaning into bringing more women into that agency and organization is incredibly phenomenal. Unfortunately, women make up about 25 to 27% of the cybersecurity workforce. And really, her leaning into this space and trying to grow it, I think, is going to radically change, kind of the future of understanding this space. And why it's so important that we need more women into this space. It's because sometimes we just have a different way of viewing the world. It's not good or bad. It's not black or white. It's very altering different shades of gray. And so where I would say there are some areas that, unfortunately, if you have a very like-minded organization and people see things in the same direction, you don't always get the ability to look at problems from different angles. And that's why her ability to kind of grow the number of women in this space will cause huge rippling effects in how we really protect this nation. Cybersecurity is a part of national security in totality. Definitely, I myself, I'm a mother of 2 teenagers, and I understand security as a mom. I see things on the internet very differently than some people who would just say they don't have kids yet, right? We see things from different angles, where harm is, where mis and disinformation is angled at different people. And also, what is critical infrastructure? What is critical to you? Let's say I live here in Washington, D.C. When the metro stops, that is really, really critical infrastructure, because my kids can't get to school. We don't have buses here, right? They ride the metro. So those are some aspects and areas, like if there are more people that understand, hey, where are aspects of our national elections? How is that information getting in? How is messaging being targeted differently towards men and women? I think catching up on that, it makes it really exciting. And I'm really, really glad to see the efforts of more women leaning into this space, because not only are they great jobs, they're really good paying jobs as well. And so the more people we can get at the starter level of cybersecurity gets us more into all the way up to those CISO roles that pay incredibly well, board seats. We need more women in business and on boards. Somebody told me, man, you have the best hack to get on a paid board. And I was like, what do you mean? They said, cybersecurity. We don't have enough people that understand it. So not only can you get in that way, but you can also get on those board seats and really understand governance and how we make sure boards themselves and businesses don't turn into FTX, mind you, and don't get duped into crypto. Like, those are things we get in cybersecurity. And that's why it's a really fun part to be in this field right now.
So Nicholas brings up, I think, a really relevant point in that last discussion. Right? For decades, we have relied both in the military, in the intelligence community, but also in the commercial sector on cryptographic keys that are strong enough to have the adversary not be able to break them, or at least not be able to break them without months of supercomputer kind of dedicated effort. AES 256, elliptical curve. Nicholas asks that, well, you mentioned quantum computing briefly. What should we be concerned about as we look forward to that part of cyber and to the very improvements, invention, innovation on the compute side? What does that mean then on the cyber side?
Right. I think, and thanks for the question, Nicholas. I think the curiosity of this is, how are we going to end up altering the cybersecurity landscape itself to meet the challenge of quantum? There are tons of great individuals that are full bore focused on this. Jen Savada is one person that comes to mind. She's working right now. She's a retired Air Force officer, and she's very heavily involved in this space. And I respect the work that she has kind of put out there. She would be somebody that I definitely look and read the work that she is doing. It will alter what we do 100%. But I'm really encouraged every day when I walk into Fort Meade and the people that I am around that are focused on this issue, that are leaning into this. Schools, I know we've got, I got a shout out to MIT if anybody's listening from there. I was very fortunate to go to participate in a seminar with them. and some of the brilliant minds at all of the schools that are attending right now. Your brain power is going to be the one that's going to help crack this nut, because it's going to face us probably within our lifetime, and it's going to alter the space. But I think we're up to the challenge.
Well, that's one of the cool things about cyber, right? If you're really excited about innovation, about invention, then cyber needs to go right alongside where the inventions take us. Quantum computing is just part of it, right? There's quantum cryptography, there's quantum communications, there's quantum key distribution, right? There's all sorts of things that will come out from that ability to take the properties in the nucleus of an atom and extend that relationship across large distances. So Nicholas, great question. And one of the reasons why, as Colonel Frost has indicated, you got to be curious to be in this space and a lifelong learner, which is that a feature or it's a bug? I think it's a feature for a career in cyber. Caitlin, any thoughts, questions, observations?
As Colonel Frost mentioned earlier, women still are trying to get into the cybersecurity field. So for you, what challenges have you faced when entering a predominantly male industry and trying to break into a leadership position?
Caitlin, that's a really great question. I'm going to divert a little away from cybersecurity for just a second to talk about kind of understanding roles and kind of stepping into, looking forward. I am a huge advocate of both mentorship and sponsorship. And so the first role I'd like to talk about in this aspect and understanding, you're looking forward and you're saying, hey, one day I want to be a manager. I'd like to lead this organization. Start to look out there, kind of whether it's in your professional organization, especially if you're in school right now, getting people great professors that you really like and talk to them about kind of forming a mentoring opportunity for them to either open their networks to you and start to make some connections and start to introduce you to different people. That's incredibly important. Finding good mentors, and there are mentors at the gold, silver, and bronze level. Right now, the bronze level, those are mentors that you may be working with in your school, some of your professors. When you get to the silver level, those are people you've worked with maybe 2 to 5 years. You've jumped from one job to another. And then that gold mentor is someone that like a lifelong mentor, right? I have 1 or 2 mentors who have been with me for over 2 decades, and they're phenomenal and they're constantly looking out for me. But as you're moving from your certification or degreed school and going into the workforce, find those people that you're like, when you listen to them and you're like, I want to be like them. There's something about them. If that makes you kind of itch and say like, what is their life path? Start to ask them questions. Shy away from mentors who want to make you a Xerox copy of them, because they're not looking out for your best interest. Each of you will uniquely have a path that you have to kind of plow your own field, me being from Iowa, and saying like, you've got to, break your own path, find your own way. But that mentor will help, kind of provide you a map or a blueprint. The second part of it is really sponsorship. And the mentor themselves can either talk to people in positions of power. Sponsors are people that when they're in a room and sitting around a table, you've got to think of like the big kahuna, right? People listen to what they say. Finding sponsors who are going to help open the door for you and speak on your behalf when you're not anywhere around, those are brilliant. That will bring you into leadership positions, those individuals. It takes time to cultivate relationships like that, but it's worthwhile to invest in that. And that doesn't mean you have to go to every single networking opportunity. You do have to get your feet a little wet walking into the networking realm. So cybersecurity typically brings forward some introverts. I challenge people in this field. Sometimes you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So kind of step out of your own way, work into finding networking opportunities. And I definitely think that will help you move into leadership roles. Take on challenges, start to figure out ways and figure out who you are as a leader. Each of us have attributes, right? You have to know your own. I know it's a great interview question, right? For a job. What are your strengths and weaknesses? You're the same way as a leader. We all do. We all have things. I am incredibly, and we mentioned at the beginning, right, with operations, I am very mission focused. I love a good challenge. I want to be on the cutting edge of things. I run towards the sound of the guns. There are some areas I am just not as good as. I'm not a dot the T, cross the I kind of person. So when I surround myself with people that are very, like, if I walk in their office and it's super clean, I like having people like that work for me, because that's not me at all. It's never going to be me. But I know as a leader, things that I really inspire is that hunger to really achieve more and create teams that kind of go to a new height. That part I'm really good at. So over years, I've started to develop who I am as a leader and where I can best fit in organizations. Challenge yourself to that. What are your strengths? I think there's a great understanding. Some of the books are strength-based. Where are your strengths? Strength Finders is one book that you can do and kind of ask yourself those questions and figure out who you are as both a follower and as a leader, and it'll pay off. I think I went on a long diatribe on that question, but that obviously I'm super passionate about this.
That's
the
great,
mentoring
Candice.
bug.
Yeah, and mentorship is a relationship, right? It's a two-way value proposition. And one of the things that I encourage you all to think about is the value that you bring into that relationship as the junior partner in that junior-senior relationship. Often you'll be that pulse of what's going on at your particular level for a senior person that just doesn't have all of the connections to what's really going on? What are the real problems? And so, don't forget that you've got value up channel as well. And the gold relationships are often preserved because both sides see, an amazing mutual value in that regular exchange. And mentorship, sometimes it can be ad hoc, sometimes it can be informal, but it can also be formal, right? You want to think about, do we want to schedule? Maybe a schedule would work. It'll keep us on a drumbeat. Candice, can you talk a little bit about that? The different kinds of mentoring relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I have found the number one area in real estate is location, location, location. In mentorship, it's connection, connection, connection. So when you're looking at trying to find a mentor, a great place to start is people that are around you right now, people that excite you or things that you read. I'm amazed at the number of people, especially if you're in school right now and you read an article or something that you're assigned, a book even, and you're like, I love this. There's something about it that just excites me. Write to the author. You would be amazed how few people actually take that first step. LinkedIn is your gold mine. It's amazing. Now, I understand some people in the intelligence community don't feel very comfortable. I'm kind of a out in the open intelligence officer. So you've got to be able to know that LinkedIn has ways to kind of protect you, but I am a huge advocate of that space and using that for the power of good by reaching out and asking questions. Looking towards a kind of a schedule method of those people who you've spoken with, you've established a rapport, right? It is a relationship. Starting to look at, I have one person I'm mentoring right now who is transitioning out of the Army. I have met with her once a month. We have at least an hour together. We either share a cup of coffee. I've worked with her on a resume. We went to a job fair, her very first one the other day. And I literally had her walk up to different companies and organizations and kind of did her pitch. And then she stepped back, looked at me, and we critiqued it. Okay, what are they asking you for? What are we doing? And having that kind of relationship back and forth, it helps me as well. As just stated, I'm watching her and then figuring out for myself, hey, how can I be a better mentor? I think I missed this opportunity to kind of dive into. This was her strength. Like she was had a little bit of imposter syndrome, and I kept throwing her back up on stage to say, nope, get back at it. You got to do more reps and sets to get very comfortable with kind of your pitch and your spiel, right? But that's what a good mentor does. They go into the breach with you and understand that action. Some people will reach very high for a mentor that is incredibly busy and really high up. I would say when you start off, look at mentors that are maybe 1 to 2 positions ahead of you versus like the CEO of a company. You may aspire to be that one day, and that's awesome. Don't let that dream die. But when you're looking at mentors and you're just starting out of college, look for people that are a little bit closer to maybe where you're at, or people around in your networks right now, and always ask them, what are 1 or 2 books I should be reading? 1 or 2 podcasts I should listen to, YouTube channels I should subscribe to. Hey, where should I look for books and understanding, and who should I network with? In your network, who can you introduce me to, please? They'll take your feedback as well, and kind of subscribe to, hey, what are new things that are going on that I'm missing, because maybe I'm just not seeing it and I have a hole in my swing. Because it's a reciprocative process, and man, it feels good. It feels good to mentor. And I encourage lots of people to do this.
Let's open it up to the group. So what's on your minds, folks? What would you like to ask Candice about? What maybe you saw something in the last couple of weeks regarding cybersecurity or a particular attack vector, or maybe you're thinking about beyond the military. What are the kinds of cyber jobs in the commercial world, and how can maybe experience with the military lead towards something like that? What are you all thinking about?
I can definitely start off the group too. Colonel Frost, you have demonstrated such great leadership and kind of a commitment to service and giving back. At Virginia Tech, we really do try to do the ut prosum, which is giving back to our community. How did your experiences from working your way up from West Point through multiple deployments to your current position, did you find a competitive advantage in your commitment to service?
So, can you circle back a little bit on the question? Again, I want to make sure I'm answering it.
Yeah. So our motto, so you know, is ut prosum, and ut prosum translates that I may serve. So it's a part of our culture. It becomes a part of our DNA. So Gia, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically from West Point, I know there's a really big stress on leadership and kind of that service aspect. Did you find that was an advantage as you went through your career?
I think some of the biggest advantages that I had is the work that I started when I began this leadership journey through West Point. I was surrounded by A+ players and people that constantly challenge. Like, no one was the quarterback of the football team, an A+ student in every single class. Like, you had some kind of experience at West Point that served you a very large slice of humble pie. Receiving that was amazing, a great way to start my career, because I understood you can't be perfect and great at everything. That lesson that I learned at West Point, that I failed plebe gymnastics. So there you go. Being honest, right? I did not do very well. I was not great at computer science. So those areas I wasn't good at, I recognized, hey, wait, I'm really good at the poli-sci stuff and I can run really long distances. So how can people who are good in the areas I'm not good at help me? And on the flip side, how can I help others? That part of service and figuring out where my strengths can help someone out, that I've been able to take forward with me to understand you don't want Xerox copies like yourself in any organization. You've got to reach out and start to figure out, hey, where's their greatness? Let me help them find that greatness and use that to the whole team's advantage. Because if everybody looks, walks, talks, and speaks like me, it's not going to be a great team, because we're all going to be so myopically focused. So trying to find team members and their prowess and move them in that direction, that's what I have found throughout my service to the nation, has really encouraged me to keep doing this, because I've just loved soldiering so much. But I do see we have a question. I see we have a question from someone.
We'll go to that just a second. I want to underscore one of the things that's so important there. Gianna, you mentioned service and a commitment to service. Selfless service is something that in the moment may seem like, well, I'm not being as aggressive as I could be. I'm not putting myself out in front of everyone else. But often selfless service is recognized for the being genuine in what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. In the Navy, we call it covenant leadership, and leading so that you're more concerned about the success of your team and others than necessarily yourself. And quite often that leads to the success of the leader. And there's a fantastic movie that just came out about Jesse Brown, Ensign Jesse Brown, and Lieutenant Thomas Hudner, who were two pilots in the Korean War, African American, who just thought that no one was going to help him. He's going to go it alone. A white lieutenant, little senior in rank from Harvard, pretty boy, captain of the team. And it was Ensign Brown that taught Lieutenant Hudner about what truly being a wingman was. And that commitment, that sense that you're there for others, not just there for yourself, that is extremely powerful. So you can think about that in terms of relationships with individuals, but also think about that more broadly with leading teams. And I'm sorry, I can't interrupted you.
No problem at all. I was going to get, I saw Archie Hill posted a question, so I was going to dive into that.
Sure.
And it actually vectors into the points we both just made with respect to if you're going in directions where you may not find yourself in your position of strength, right? So Archie asked, did I find it hard learning cybersecurity kind of coming from a political science background? That's been the joy of what I've done as an intelligence officer, is that I've always kind of dove into different areas that I did not have a huge, strong understanding. My moniker is, get comfortable being uncomfortable. So when I dove into the kind of cybersecurity vector, I am if you know the analogy of a hedgehog and a fox, right? I am a fox-like person with hedgehog tendencies. So I will run at something very quickly and move back and forth, but then I start to burrow down. That's just how I learn. I move in that direction and I start to figure out how I can spend the maximum amount of time learning as much as I can. So how I did this, and in no way am I a cybersecurity expert, because I am surrounded by people that really, really live, breathe this. They've done this for multiple decades. But I have found the ability to use a lot of metaphors and analogy to join the team by really looking and listening and reading a ton. If you've a great book, and I even actually gave this to my mom for Christmas to read, is Nicole Pearl-Ross, They Tell Me This Is How the World Ends. She's a New York Times author. The book itself is about zero-day exploits, but she writes it like a spy novel. And that's how, when you're looking at, understanding huge problems, huge like nation state problems, find some of those authors that are out there that speak to you in your language, things that really fire you up. So I looked at cybersecurity with respect to national security and the intelligence community. And from that point, I really started to then dive into, okay, what does it mean to be a penetration tester? How do networks work? What is access? All of those areas, ransomware. I started to pivot into different areas. Once I figured out, hey, where's my forte? Where can I make comparisons to things that I've done throughout my entire career with respect to understanding nation state threats towards us and build upon those skills. So if you have, I know there are some people listening, you have a business background, like understand you get return on investment, risk, understanding vulnerabilities. Cybersecurity has the same thing. If you're protecting something, you want to mitigate and lower the risk to that. There's a huge piece of this that's a part, and trust me, a very lucrative part that you can add on to. Another big area I would encourage you to do is look at nonprofit organizations. We mentioned some, Intelligence and Security Alliance is one, INSA, AFCEA is another one. They have chapters all over the United States. And there are plenty of nonprofits out there. Cyversity, they're dedicated towards mentorship. WISIS. I mean, there are so many nonprofits that are just like pulling you in to say, hey, let us help teach you about cybersecurity. You don't have to go it alone. You don't have to get every single certification that's out there. It's helpful to ask people which ones you should have. And I highly encourage everyone to continue to look at the cloud. That is also, quantum is going to be a huge game changer. The changer right now is understanding cloud. Do those things, and it'll bleed into what you're passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just on the military national security side, right? ISACA, Information Systems Audit and Control Association. For those in business degrees, cyber audit is huge. And CPAs that have achieved their cyber badge are in great demand to do ISO 57001, 57002 audits. And what Candice described, don't think that you've got to choose your strengths and then you never look at the other areas. As you get more senior, you'll find that your strengths increasingly push you also towards compensating skills in the areas that you weren't as strong with to begin with. But if you're going to play to your strength, you need to know the language of cyber. So you learn about the technology of cyber. I was an engineer, systems technology for my master's degree, but then I got more senior and asked to be a delegate to the ITU, UN forum for the nation. The last administration asked me to go to Beijing twice to be part of track 2 cyber negotiations with the Chinese. I didn't have any poli-sci in my background, but it at some point I got to the level in my career where having diplomatic skills and ability to really help develop what are our objectives nationally in that area became important. So if you are going to pursue that leadership track, people leadership track, policy leadership track, think about those compensating skills. There are some of you that are going to say, you know what, I really want to be a research person and I want to crack the quantum nut, and we need those folks also. So at some point in your career, pick a path. But I can tell you, even the research scientists at some point need to lead other research scientists, and figuring out how to use networks, use those leadership skills to increase the breadth and the velocity of the impact you're having on our society. All good stuff. Simone asks about Russian attackers. Can you talk a little bit more, and maybe in broad strokes, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, criminals?
Yeah, I would say so. Most recently, the latest national security strategy does a really good job of kind of outlining, hey, where are those nation states that we should be of gravest concern towards our country? Obviously, we've all witnessed what Russia has done to Ukraine and the vectors that they've used, not only initially what they did with Viacom, and how our country and many other nations kind of came to the aid of the Ukrainian people by innovating and providing multiple different means to ensure that they had secure communications. That has been great to see. So as we really look at how Russia tried to truly target their information domain and space by targeting their networks, we were able to kind of, we being the rest of the world that's coming to the aid of Ukraine, has helped out tremendously, and it's been really encouraging to see. But Russia still does understand really the idea of getting into the information space with respect to how they've used a targeted approach to not only understanding our weaknesses in the mis and disinformation space, how they've kind of maneuvered in those vector and areas. They'll continue to use this to their advantage to the best that they can. Cyberspace is an asymmetric approach that they can use to really trying to attempt to match us. They can't match us dollar for dollar, bullet for bullet, but they understand this space. They've trained a lot of people in that area. The question is, when I say vector, what do I mean? Each of those different areas or different paths that they can use. I'm not specifically talking towards a particular network itself. When we look at China, a very broad, huge understanding, and they've got a tremendous and very strong firewall around their country. What we're seeing right now in China, the protests themselves, is really, you are at a moment in time, if you're a poli-sci major, of tremendous, I would say you should have a big smile on your face, because watching the world rapidly change in front of us is incredibly important. We have been able to demonstrably see, despite China's attempt to use a huge firewall, different VPNs, different areas that's been able to get this information outside of China, has been incredibly fun to watch, but also impactful in the fact that not only are they protesting COVID, they're starting to protest the Communist Party itself. And that's something that hasn't occurred really since '89. What we're also seeing another area, and that's incredible, but China really has built their engineers, their cybersecurity experts. They've done a tremendous amount in their country to keep them really walled off from the rest of the world and protected. And it is of grave concern for us. A moniker that I took from another Intel professional is, China first, Russia always. So those are the two biggest players when I look at the ecosystem itself. They're the two areas that I look at. But we also have to look at North Korea and the work that they had done. They were a very early adapter in this space, whether it was targeting banks or especially the crypto world. They were heavily involved in that to finance their country in totality. And then last but not least, I can't forget Iran. The protests that are going on there, the length of time, again, jaw-dropping, monumental change could happen, and we really do hope so. But they are very, very well adept to understanding this space and using it to their advantage, whether it started the nation state itself, and then they've been also to use it with non-state actors. So that's a quick run around the world of areas that we look at, and I would be remiss not to say non-state criminal actors as well, with the work that's been done in ransomware over the past couple of years has been incredibly impactful, and it's an area we look at with respect to emerging technical threats that are out there.
And a soft underbelly to society, right? I regularly am working with municipalities, rural areas, counties that have just lost their government due to ransomware for a couple of weeks. And we've got a lot of cyber risk gaps as we go from this area down into the rest of the heartland. So there are plenty of jobs out there, right? And a lot of it is just finding that right match for you. And one of the reasons why I'm so excited about our community college program is that a lot of these rural communities that need cyber professionals, they don't exactly have the ability to go buy the top end PhD. They want somebody, with a 2-year kind of expertise that wants to continue to work. So you all are going to be able to find, the right match that fits where you're excited about. I did want to, Candice, you brought up Russia, and I just recently, I don't know if you can see that, but it's the Soviet General Staff at War, 1941, 1945. Maskarova, right? The Soviets were successful against the Nazis in a big way because of their deception, because their ability to mask from the Germans what their movements were going to be tactically.
What we look at
States took that curtain back and just turned their own game on. I'm sorry, Candice.
Yeah, we look a lot right now at active measures, and Gerasimov's, although we call it the Gerasimov doctrine, but really what is done with all these different, and I keep using the word vector itself, all of these different areas where competitively they can walk on par with a large nation state like the United States and try to find those seams, those two areas, especially what they had done with the example I brought up earlier with the 2016 elections. They understand the culture of the United States, and where the rub is. If they can get in between those two areas and cause that to agitate, they're very adept to that. And that's why they've really got a PhD in active measures. They're doing very well at it. Their country is also led by a former intelligence officer. So
well, and on the flip side, China vis-a-vis Taiwan, we really are looking at some of the protests going on and get excited about that. But the KMT won the elections in Taiwan in this last round, right? Which is the group that has been more sympathetic to a long-term association with China. So it's never a dull moment, and you can never completely separate the geopolitical from the tactical, from the operational. Candice, this has just been tremendous. On behalf of the class, the combined student bodies here, just really want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule, for sharing with us, your experiences, which are amazing, but also your leadership best practices. And for those that haven't been to the site yet, I encourage you to passively have Colonel Frost be one of your mentors, because she's got one of the best mentor sites possible. If you want to know where to start, go to her site online, and you're going to get the cookbook, the knee board that says do this, and this, and at the end of the week you're going to have this amazing mentor network, or become a mentor yourself. So Gianna, Caitlin, anything in closing?
Nothing. Just again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm sure, as again, we all are so grateful for it, and it's truly really informative, and it will help us in starting our careers, because we're at that point in our lives. So really, again, thank you so much, Colonel Frost.
Great.
Well,
Caitlin?
It's truly my pleasure. It's been delightful. Thanks for all of you attending, and I wish you all the best of luck. Have a great week, and continue to lean forward in cybersecurity wherever you find yourself. Thank you.
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Connect the force. Have a good night.